I just did like a half whisper, half soft spoken video, stuff like that. That's on my second YouTube channel. That'll be linked down below. If you want strictly just more ASMR content from me, I have a Patreon. Patreon's where you get to know me better. It's all ASMR videos, but I do a lot of life updates and do a lot of personal story times like this one, where you get to learn more about my past, who I was before jumping onto YouTube, how I got to where I am, my recent stuff going on in my life, my future, and I also do trigger videos, of course. I just did a rating roasting Coachella outfits / story time about how we caught my good friend's boyfriend red-handed cheating last weekend at a bar, so that is over on Patreon. But anyway, into tonight's story. If you are not already subscribed to this channel, I would be really, really happy if you did. We are a group of very kind, caring people, and the audience and supporters that I have, literally I say it all the time, they are the best people in the entire world on the internet. So if you want to be a part of that group, I would love if you joined. It is free. The subscribe button will be right below this video, and it does help me out a lot. So yeah, tonight we're going to talk about my relapse story. Let me first preface. Let me first say that I am 9 years clean. I will be 10 years clean in January of 2023, so I'm looking forward to that. It's a big marker. But if you haven't been with me that long, you might not have seen the video I did talking about how I ended up in drug court and how I ended up, going in and out of jail. I'd be in jail because I was in drug court. Your punishment if you gave them a dirty tox, dirty urine, is getting sanctioned for a week or 2 weeks in the county jail, or if you were there for like over 5 days, you would go to like the bigger jail. But I did a story time about that, and I've done a bunch over on my Patreon. I've also done videos about how I got addicted. I was addicted to opiates. I was in a very really, I mean, at the time, I wasn't loving the situation, but now, looking back, I'm really happy that I did it, and I think it was a big contributor to me staying clean. But so while I was in this sober living house, it was right after I So I ended up like passing out or falling asleep or something, waking up and freaking out because when you're living in the sober living house, you have rules. You have to be back for dinner, you have to eat together. Sometimes you'd be on cooking duty, and the rules were strict. And I was still in court as well. And if, every week when you go to court, the sober living house will report to the court and let them know if you're following rules. And if you're not, you can get sent back on a sanction, do a week or two in jail. And that's the last thing I wanted. And after a while, if the court gets sick of you, like, taking advantage, they can just put you in jail for a year and just be like, you know what, you're not taking this court seriously. We're done with you. You're out of the program and you're going to jail. Well, obviously I didn't want any of that. So I woke up from my slump and I'm like, oh no. And she had been calling this poor lady. I like left her outside in the car and told her I'd be right out. So she called and called and called and texted, and I wasn't responding. So she left and told me, whenever you get this, call me and I'll come back and get you. She was knocking on the door. Nobody would come to the door. She said she was like so scared, so nervous. So when I woke up, I called her back and she's like, what happened? What's going on? And I didn't tell her. I just said like, oh, I was super tired. I fell asleep or my phone died or something. I don't remember what I said, but she came and got me. And I remember getting in her car and her just looking at me and being so disappointed in me. I remember the look on her face because she knew, she knew. She could tell by the way I looked that I had used. And I put her in a bad position. I really did, because she was recovering too. And I just felt really bad about that. But anyway, so she took me back to the sober living house. And all of the staff was, there, and all of the other girls. And in the living area, you're not allowed to eat or drink. And I knew these rules. And mind you, I'm high, and I'm trying to hide it from people. And I have this humongous jug of orange juice, and I'm drinking it in the living room, spilling it on myself, eating. I was taking food out of the fridge that was for everybody, and putting my fingers and hands in it. I was a mess, okay? And people were starting to put two and two together around me. And I could tell that people were looking at me and talking, whispering, because So I sat in the hospital alone. And I knew that I was going to have to face the judge when I got out, and I did. But they were very kind, and they're like, we know that you relapsed and overdosed, and you're going to have to do a week in jail as a sanction, as a punishment, but we're not going to kick you out of court. You could stay at the sober living house. So I did my week in jail, and it was really tough. I felt so alone, and I felt like everything that I had done up until that point was such a waste. But that wasn't true. That wasn't true at all. I had gained so much knowledge, and I forgot to say when